Welcome to another Warmaster's Workshop. Today we're going to be installing a visor using Chicago screws and rubber grommets. That way we can make it removable if we need to, or replaceable. So what I've already done is, and I know you can see this in the light, so I'm letting the light sort of shimmer on it here, or actually I can set it down and it'll show up okay. There's some small marks, as you can see, these little dots that I've already made. Right there. And we'll come down. I've already made some dots with a Sharpie that correspond to where the Chicago screws are going to go. And so what I did was I just put my welding shield visor here in the helmet. I made sure to close the front here nice and snug. And then I took my Sharpie and I just made marks where I wanted the Chicago screws to go. And now all we need to do really is mount the Chicago screws. Another thing I did, you can see in there at the brow, I'll point right over here and right over here, is I used some plumber's epoxy to fill that in so that we can put our Chicago screws there. And let's talk a little bit about these Chicago screws. What we're using is just a really, this is a, that's a 1/8 of an inch aluminum Chicago screw. And you're going to ask, why aluminum? Well, the big reason behind using aluminum is because aluminum won't rust, and you will sweat in your bucket, therefore it's going to rust. So we need to take out enough Chicago screws, or have enough to correspond to these holes. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so there's our 10 pairs of Chicago screws right here. I've also got a bunch of grommets right here. These are just rubber grommets that you get with steel Chicago screws. And what we're going to do is, I'm just going to pour out a small pile. Alright, so we've got our adhesive as well, which is cut 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've also got our super glue, and I've got some extras just in case. But this is just regular old super glue or crazy glue. And I've also got a punch. This is a leather punch, but it should punch through this. Welding shield. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start punching the holes out of this. And I want to make sure that I'm using the largest punch that I have here. And I'm centering it right over the top of one of those Sharpie holes, or Sharpie marks. I'm going to twist it. And there we have a nice hole. Holes in. We almost made a little mistake right here, but luckily that's going to be hidden by the helmet. But we've got all of our holes punched out, and I did end up taking a drill bit and going back through these, making them a little bit bigger because our punch just wasn't wide enough on its own. So now we're going to mark where the Chicago screws will go, and to do that, we're going to go ahead and put our helmet back in. And let's just check to make sure that it's in well on this side. It is. I think it should be fine. Everything looks good out through here. So we want to be careful because this hole here, you can see right there's one of the holes. We want to make sure we get that under the helmet there. This side here, we've made our marks. You can see where marks are at. We've got 2 sets of marks, but we want this inner set right here. We want this, or this set that's more, that's more towards the outer edge. We want that set. So I'm going to make a strike through. So I know not to use those. Alright, so let's go ahead and glue our Chicago screws on there. Just putting a little dollop of glue on there of the crazy glue. Alright, so we went ahead and put our visor in after our crazy glue or super glue has dried. So let's go ahead and we're going to put the tops on these Chicago screws. I'm also going to see if we need to put any grommets on these. Now we have some really thin grommets here, and I'd like to put those on if we can. That will help to tighten these down. And I'm just going to put these on there hand tight. I'm not going to really worry about screwing them down too hard. I'm going to pull the camera down just a little bit here so you can see a bit better how I'm doing this. So you can see how that looks. These are also really flush, which sets them very much out of the way. Now, if you find that if your visor's not seating completely properly here with everything on it, you can go in. Usually that means that you need to adjust your hole a little bit here. See, ours is seating fine. It's just getting the grommet to stay on there. That's always the difficult part because that grommet is going to sit super flush. I think we might actually need a larger grommet on this one. That's why I have 2 sizes. The other side it was fine, but this side needs it's a double-sized grommet. This is I think that's a 2/16, maybe a 3/16 of an inch. There we go. All right, and now let's go ahead and get the rest of these, and then we'll come back, see how this looks, and we'll make our marks for the upper part. Okay, so we have we've come back after we have went ahead and glued in all of our Chicago screws. I'm going to cut on this little light here so you can get a better look at how those look in here. So we've lined them up to match the T-visor, and we've got them all the way to the edge of the vertical visor here on each side. So let's go ahead and we'll put our T-visor in, and we'll see how this looks. Now, one of the things you're going to see on here is that I had to make another hole right here because this hole was just over a little too far. But that's fine because this is well hidden. You're not even going to see it. This basically just snaps right in. So let's go ahead and we're going to screw this in. We're going to do the bottom first, and we'll come back and we'll get the top. These screwing these down can be a little bit tricky. Actually, use my metal ruler here because it fits into those screw heads really nicely. And you just want to do it till it's snug, because if you go too far, you might pop the adhesive on these things. You don't want to do that. You can also, because these are aluminum, they're not anywhere near as strong as a steel Chicago screw, so if you're not careful too, you can actually just end up screwing the end right off. It just pops right off if you're not careful. So don't over tighten. There's really no need to anyway. Alright, so let's take a look at this. So there's our visor with all of the Chicago screws in place. The Chicago screws don't take up, I mean, they're mostly flush. They don't really protrude. Not enough to where it would hurt you, I'd put it that way. If the helmet were to get pushed back towards your face. Let's take a look at the outside of the helmet now. See how the visor looks now. Oh yeah, very nice. It's actually nice and flush with all the edges here. And in my opinion, that's when a visor looks the best on a helmet, is when it's nice and flush. This also, it also adds strength to the helmet. As you can see, the helmet no longer wobbles. There's no weird movements with the helmet or anything like that. So, yeah, that's perfect. That is a perfectly installed visor. It's in there nice and tight. And again, all of the edges, I mean, it's hugging the edges. There's a little bit of gap around the eyes here, but you can't see it. This is a good thing though, because it does let some air get into the helmet. You want a little bit of gap in a few places where it's not noticeable, where nobody can see the gap. But as far as what the helmet looks like on the inside with this, let me put my little light on here. Those Chicago screws are nice and flush. So anyway, that is how you install a visor using Chicago screws. So we have covered most of the primary visor installation methods in the tutorials. We've done hot glue / adhesive. We've done the nut and bolt method, and now we have done the Chicago screw method. So, and as you can see, the Chicago screw method is not difficult. It just requires some patience and letting the glue dry, making your marks and cutting your holes. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do those things. But I feel like the Chicago screws really come out to be a nicer looking visor, because you can tighten it down pretty flush with the helmet, and it just looks better. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing your helmet in the future. And as always, thanks for joining us in the War Masters Workshop. We'll be back next month with a new tutorial.